Hey everybody, it's Andre Shirdan with the Eaglesoft Field Guide, and I'm here with, this has got to be my co-host from now on because we've done a bunch of videos together. So Passion, thank you for doing this with me. I really appreciate this.
My pleasure. It's always fun hanging out with you.
And Passion's an awesome office manager, Eaglesoft user, and we've done this before. And I thought we'd get together and do a video about provider hours. And people are always posting about, oh my God, my day is open, my day is closed, all kinds of weird things about the schedule. And I thought showing people how the schedule opens and closes and how that all works would be a good way to kind of create a video. What do you think? Is that a good
Mhm.
idea?
That's an awesome idea. I think that was one of the things that I struggled the most with Eaglesoft was trying to figure out how to close the day, how to open up the day.
Yep.
And then also I think one of the things that we should touch base on is if one of the providers are starting a little later than the other providers, like how
Yep.
would we adjust that as well?
Perfect. So, it all kind of starts with this. So, and actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to log off of Eaglesoft and I'm going to log back on for Sunday, the 26th of February, because we're closed that day. And it's a good starting point to be able to log into Eaglesoft so that people can see, all right, I'm on Sunday, February 26th of 2023. And I'm going to open up my schedule and it's blank because we don't work Sundays. All right. And you can see that the day is completely blanked out. There's nobody scheduled. All my doctors are closed. Everything is good. So what we're going to do is we're going to punish one of my doctors and say they have to work on Sundays. All right. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go up to list providers, and let's edit Dr. Beer. And we're going to go over to his hours. And everything from the schedule starts from the hours. So I'm going to go to hours. All right. And then I'm going to pick one of his chairs. And I'm going to say that Dr. Beer, he has two chairs. These are his two chairs. And these are the hours he works. So I'm going to say that his surgery chair, because this is a good one, his surgery chair is going to be now open on Sundays. And it automatically says from 8 till 5. And let's say, nope, he actually is going to work from 6 a.m. till noon. All right. It's going to ask me if he wants a lunch. So he's only going to work till noon. So I'm not going to give him a lunch. So he's going to work from his Prosto 3 beer chair, which is called surgery, on Sundays from 6 a.m. to noon. There is no lunch. All right. And let's put a goal in here. I'm going to say that he needs to, in order to be open that day, he needs to do $4,000. So we're going to add to his goal that day too. And I'm going to save that and close it. Close him out. Close him out. Let's open the schedule back up. And magically, his day opened up. So now he's open from 6 a.m. until noon. Notice that my day when I opened it opened so that I could see it starting at 6. I don't know if you noticed it before, but it started at 8 o'clock. All right. So if you have hours, it's going to start where the day starts. So let me open it back up so everybody can see that. All right. So it started, my top of my day is at 6 o'clock. So whenever you have hours in the day, it opens that way. So a lot of people will say, hey, how come my day opens at midnight or opens at weird? Because if there's no hours set up, it's going to start at midnight and show you starting from midnight because that's when the day starts. So this work day starts at 6. Dr. Beer opens, he's working. He's the only provider who's working that day because he's the only provider who has Sunday hours. And think about this. All you have to do is expand this idea to say which hygienists work, what days they work, et cetera, et cetera. And then your day starts off that way. And back to your thought about if doctors start at different times, all we do is if I said Dr. Yellen, and we're going to give Dr. Yellen some time, I'm going to go over to list, providers and staff. Let's grab Dr. Yellen. And we're going to give Edna Yellen hours in both of her chairs. All right, because she's got normal hours. I'm going to say since it's both of her chairs, I'm going to go right to her normal default hours and give her Sunday. And she comes in at noon p.m. Make sure sure you guys are doing the AM to PM. And she's going to work to 5. So Dr. Beer's working until noon, and then Dr. Yellen comes in at noon and works until 5 p.m. on Sundays. And we're going to give her just a break at 3 p.m. just so she can have a bathroom break. And she's only going to have it for 20 minutes. So 3 to 3:20, she's going to get a bathroom break. I'm a terrible employer. I can't type it in here. So until she's going to just get a 20-minute break. I'm going to select all of her chairs and apply that hour. Close it out, open my schedule back up, and there she is. And you can see it says lunch. Now, I don't know if you've ever run into this. Offices who say, you know what, we have a meeting at lunchtime. Can I change that to meeting instead of lunch? Answer is no, you can't. But this is where your blocks come in. So you can always create a block, put that, say meeting, all right? And this is what I always do, see notes. Because in my notes, I can put special private meeting notes and agendas. If it was, imagine a lunch and learn with, Patterson, and they were going to pay for pizza and they gave you their credit card number, hint, hint. Then you could put the credit card number in there. And the beauty is now I don't see those notes unless I hover over it. And now I can see those notes. So if you're going to do something very specific like that, then you can put your notes inside there so that anybody looking at your schedule directly doesn't see the notes, but if you hover, you can see your notes. That makes sense?
Now, with opening up this, yeah, it does.
Yep.
Now, with opening up the Sunday schedule, that's Sunday going forward, right? So it's opening up all the Sunday schedules.
Yep.
So
we'll go
let's
backwards.
say that
It'll go either direction because I just defaulted the hours. So if I go back to the 19th, it's open. If I go forward, it's open.
Oh,
That's every Sunday if I do it through the provider hours.
okay. So what if, let's say that one of the assistants is going to be out on one of the Sundays? How would you go about to just blocking off one of the columns so that the doctor could be single booked?
Perfect. So let's say Dr. Yellen typically works 2 afternoons on Sundays, but she always works with an assistant. And she says, you know what, on Sunday, the 12th of March, my assistant's going to be out this day. So I only want 1 chair open. That good scenario?
Yep.
Okay. So on Sunday, the 12th of March, see, we are on Sunday, the 12th. What I'm going to do is say, this particular chair, I want to block it. And what typically happens is people will put a block in the day and they'll say, no assistant, whatever. Okay. And now I've got a block in the day. The problem with that is, remember I set a goal? The problem is this is not going to impact the goal. Basically, this is saying that this is just basically a patient taking up the day and they can't work out of that. But that doesn't change the schedule. So the way to fix this is not to put a block in, delete that block, but actually to close Dr. Yellen's chair for this day without going into custom hours or anything special. So just for this day, I'm going to right click on Dr. Yellen's chair 5, and I'm going to say, close this chair. It's going to ask me why, and I'll say, no assistant. Now it's closed. But that only impacted Sunday the 12th. If I go back to any others. So it's a one-time closure for that chair. If we said, you know what, our chair, we're going to have a repairman come in this day, and we're going to have to close the entire day. Same thing. I can right-click on the header, and I can say close the entire day. Same idea. Give it a reason. Repairs. And what happens? I cannot spell today. What will happen is at the top of the day, it'll say custom hours. And if we went into custom hours, we would see that description of repairs or whatever, but it actually closed the entire day. And that actually removes it from the goals. It actually removes it from the doctor's schedule. If I were doing, if I were trying to do a look up on open times on the day, it would remove it from those searches too. But it doesn't impact any other days.
Okay.
Makes sense. So you almost have to think, as if you're putting you're almost taking think about like a cookie cutter. If you had a sheet of dough and you're taking the cookie cutter and opening holes in that sheet of dough, that's what you're doing when you're opening up the schedule. These are the openings that I created by putting hours in for the providers. And the most important thing when you're setting up those provider hours is, well, for me, is making sure that each of those columns represents a doctor. So, even in my hygienist, if I go into their hours, each of them has a chair, and I typically name them like hygiene 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then put the hygienist name, and then put in their hours for their chair. And the doctor never has hours on the provider's chair, on the hygienist's chair. Otherwise, they're going to be open even if they're not working. Right. A little complicated, but that's the best way to do it. And the cool thing is, once you get it right, you never have to do custom hours unless you have some odd thing happening. That's when you do custom hours. Like your hours change during the summer as opposed to the fall or whatever. Then you could do custom hours. But there's no reason to do custom hours unless they're really custom hours. Okay. And then you can see, like in my schedule, how my doctors, my hygienist, one starts at 8, one starts at 8:10. Lunch for this one starts at 12:10. This one starts at 12. And I can do these crazy things. Like this hygienist actually has a lunch here and then an evening break there. And I was able to put 2 lunch breaks into a day, which you normally can't do. But a little finagling and knowing how the schedule works, you're able to actually set these up so that you can see more than just one thing. All right. Now, this I will tell you is a little advanced, and it takes a whole lot of thought and planning, but it can be done. And I do that a lot of times if, again, if there's an afternoon break, or if there's 2 hygienists who work out of a chair. If you have 2 hygienists who work out of a chair, like this chair, it actually has Barbara in the morning and Sally in the afternoon. So Barbara's hours are 8 to noon, or I'm sorry, 8 to 1. She does have a lunch, but she actually has a lunch at home. And then that chair opens up again, and then Sally works from 1 until 5, and she has a lunch at that time.
Okay. So it's doable, but it's just a little bit more technical.
Yeah, you just have to think it through and just kind of plan it out. And I always tell people the easiest way to do everything in Eaglesoft when it comes to scheduling or laying out perfect day templates is get yourself like some graph paper or just a legal pad, lay it all out ahead of time, and then mimic what you just wrote down in these commands in Eaglesoft. And then you can have days that work out perfectly. Because even like these, I have these there's 2 chairs here for Dr. Beer. One is his prosthodontic chair where he does prosto work, and one is his surgical chair. And that chair changes based on the day of the week. So on Tuesdays, he does surgery. So every Tuesday, he has surgery in that chair. But on a Monday, he's on prosto work. Wednesday, he's doing prosto work. So I can open and close that chair based on the procedures that the doctor wants to do. And I do have 2 chairs for him. Dr. Gray is an older doctor who only wants to work out of 1 chair, and he works out of 1. Dr. Yellen works out of 2 chairs. All right. So really simple when you kind of plan it out ahead of time. But because I like to have each doctor have a column, all right, columns are called chairs in Eaglesoft, but I'm just calling them columns so people understand that each row is a provider. It makes it easier, and they don't represent the room or the actual chair. They represent the provider. And it's so much easier to keep it working like that. How did you guys have your chair set up as the actual room or chair, or as the provider?
We had it set up as the room, so it'll be op 1, op 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yep.
That was how we had it set up, and then and then we went based off of color. So the doctors would be one color, and then hygiene will be another color, or the hygienist, because we had 2 hygienists, it'll be one hygienist had their own color, and then the doctor would have his own colors.
Yeah, and I go into hundreds of practices a year, so I see how people do things differently. And I've always worked with the columns representing the provider, so I never needed to have my providers by color. And this represents my doctors by color. Dr. Gray happens to be blue, Dr. Beer is orange, Dr. Yellen is green, and then Annie's this pink color, Tia is this aqua color, Sally's purple, and Phyllis is yellow. So this is the way I would see it, kind of what you were just explaining. But I almost never use this color feature because once we schedule the patient, there's no reason to see who's in each column because the columns are theirs. I want to look at the procedures they're doing. But in our morning huddle, we would switch to the providers just to see that Dr. Gray, who's blue, is doing that injection, that exam. So we switch to that just so we can see that. But I can also see over here in this column, we've got some issues because this switches, which means I probably have the wrong providers set up in this column. So I can fix that before we go to walkout. But the beauty is, once you have it and there's some logical way that you're doing things, it makes it easier to be able to open close days, to be able to look at your goals, to see what your providers are doing, to be able to see lots of things above and beyond the noise of a crowded schedule.
Yep, correct.
So does that make it clearer than mud?
I don't know if you can make mud clear, but yes.
Yeah, that's a tough one. But it's so crazy because people are always wondering why their schedules have changed. And I usually say, have you introduced a new provider? Did you put a new hygienist in? Did you change somebody's hours? And one little change can dramatically change things because let's just go and let's just play with somebody. So I've got a temp hygienist in here, I think. Yeah, temp hygiene. So imagine I was entering a new hygienist, and I'm not actually going to do this, but I say, okay, that hygienist works on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and their hours are 8 to 5, and they're going to have a lunch. And okay, so I've added this new hygienist, and I save it, and then all of a sudden, my schedule looks completely wrong. Well, I didn't do it all, but it looks completely wrong. And I go, what happened? And I realized that I just added that provider and I just gave them hours in everybody's chair. And that's what screws things up. So you have to be really careful when you're in here in hours and you're setting up these hours. And good, I didn't do it. But if you messed up and you put somebody on all hours and all chairs, you're going to have an open schedule for everybody. So,
right.
But also, when you inactivate somebody, as part of that inactivation process, so Mary is leaving the practice, make sure you unassign her from all chairs. Otherwise, that chair is still going to be open, even though she's not here anymore. And you'll notice one thing. If I have no hours for somebody, when I actually go to save them as a provider, it'll yell at me and say that person doesn't have any hours. And that's a good thing for somebody who's not working anymore.
Okay. So you inactivated Mary, but then let's say you hire another hygienist and you're going to put them in Mary's chair. So would you go back? Are you just looking for the chair, or would you go and look for Mary and then change it from Mary to the new hygienist?
I would do two things. First of all, I'd go to my on schedule and I'd go to my chairs. And if, let's just say, Phyllis is no longer here, I'm going to edit the chair and rename it with the new hygienist name. All right. Maybe I'll wait until she's here for a while. But but I would rename it. So it will be no longer Phyllis's chair. And then my new hygienist, and I'm just going to use the temp so I don't have to create a whole new one. I'm going to go over here to hours and I'm going to say, we're going to assign that new hygienist to the Phyllis chair, which now has her name. I'm going to assign it and I'm going to put the hours in that she's working.
Okay.
All right. So couple steps, but that'll keep it really clean. The cool thing is when Phyllis left, her chair would have closed. All right. Now, hopefully you've moved patients from Phyllis to somebody else at this time. But if it's immediate switch from one hygienist to the next, just rename the chair, get rid of Phyllis's name, put the new hygienist name on there, and start adding the hours back to the new hygienist where Phyllis used to work. All right.
Now, if you don't move, so like if you don't move all of the patients out of Phyllis's chair and you close the chair, then all of those patients are closed too.
What's gonna happen is they're gonna show up on the schedule. I'm just gonna drop him on here. They're gonna show up on the schedule, and they're gonna show up on a closed day. The day will look like that, but the patients will be there. But you'll also get this warning that the provider doesn't typically work on that day.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll get a warning that you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing. So, it's actually kind of cool when you get that warning to let you know that Eaglesoft's kind of protecting you from doing that. But those people are just going to be sitting on top of a blank day until you give the new hygienist the hours. And then it'll be open back up and everything will be back to normal.
Okay. Yep. Makes sense.
But it's a nice thing because even, I can go out 6 months and I can look at my schedule and I can go, okay, Annie, I know she only works until 1 and somebody's looking for an appointment for her. So I can only schedule them from that time to that time. But I can also use, which I don't use, so that's why it's closed. I could use my free time search. All right, and look for an appointment just with Annie. And I can go, I need an hour on a Tuesday. You can see I don't typically use this. That's why it's not working that well. And I want to see in the next 6 months where I can schedule it. Oops, I should have done this. 6 months. And I can hit begin search. And it'll show me all of the available. It's over here behind here. It'll show me all of Annie's available 1 hour appointments in that time period. All right. But if I don't have my chair set up and I don't have all that kind of set up, it's going to really take a bunch of steps to do that. And I'm a person, because I came from the days of flipping through an appointment book. So I'm used to just flipping through my days to look for openings. But the free time search is there for those people who want to use it, and go for it. So does all that make sense?
It does, yes.
Awesome. And we did it in less than a half hour.
Is that a record?
Probably. Yeah, probably. Now let's see if everybody gets it. So here's the thing. If you guys don't understand what we just talked about, you can put a comment down in the comments under the video, and all the comments that are posted here, they'll come back to me and I'll see them and I'll reply back to it. But scheduling is one of those things that everybody has their own personal way of scheduling, but setting up the schedule, there is really one way to make it work so that it's clean and clear and available to you. So any questions about that, please let us know, and we'll make another video about it, right? Won't we do it, Basherman?
Yeah, that's what we'll do.
All right. Well, thanks. And any questions, guys, let us know. And thanks for doing this with me.
Anytime.
Thank you.